Welcome everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 platform community call. It is February 7th, as they were making shows recently in the TV shows. Can you imagine? It's January is already gone. Whatever it was, the thing what everybody was saying in the TV, in the news stands. So it's already February. Can you imagine? But in the Northern Hemisphere, we're heading to spring, which is awesome. Even in Finland, where I'm based on, we can see actually some movement on the sun, which is awesome. So it's no longer dark 24/7 at 24/7. So it's getting lighter, which is awesome. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a product manager in the Microsoft 365 platform areas. And today we will have 3 different demos. We will do, of course, the recap of what are the assets available for you to get started in Microsoft 365 development or on our community areas all up, including Power Platform areas. And then we'll do the latest news, documentation updates. We'll have the group photo for those who are willing to enable the video. And then we'll have the real stars of the day, who are Dan Wahlin, who's going to talk about getting started with Azure Communication Services, Microsoft Graph, and Microsoft Teams. Really, really cool topic as well. Then Garry is going to go a bit more super hot topics, so talking about the OpenAI and the ChatGPT integration, or DALL-E 2 integration with Teams Toolkit and in a bot framework, unless I'm completely mistaken. And then Pranita Padalwar is going to talk about Power Pages data workspace is now solutionware. And we're going to cover what that means actually in practice and what are the cool things in the Power Pages side as well. Now, before we actually get started on the latest news and what's happening, and let's do a quick recap on the assets which we have available. We do have our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community a video channel. We need to update some of the slides. I really need to find time to do that. And from where you can find videos and recordings of all of these community calls across all of Microsoft 365, Power Platform, and so on. We have a lot of open source assets available for you to take advantage, but it might be a bit difficult to find the relevant sample for you, so we actually made it super easy for you. So you can go to our sample gallery, from where you can find all of the different samples which are available, provided by Microsoft or by community, and you can easily access the relevant repository for you to get the sample what is relevant. And then if you're wondering that there's too many URLs to remember, luckily there's only one, which is AKMS M365 community, or a few adaptations of that one as well. But one URL to access the one pager, which will then have all of the links and assets available from one centralized location. Now, we do have quite a few different community calls, which we execute on a weekly or monthly or bi-weekly basis. So this is the Tuesday call, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Always Microsoft presenters and Microsoft-driven demos by the product managers, engineers, or cloud advocates, and so on. And we also have the monthly Power Platform community call. It's super popular, happening once a month. We have the Identity Platform call, Office Analytics monthly calls, and then we have our 7 a.m. Thursday series, which is either Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call or Viva Connection and SharePoint community calls. So a lot of calls. You don't have to, of course, join all of them. Join those which are interesting for you. And we always share the agenda either in Meetup or in social media advance. So you can always double check what's in the agenda and make the decision on which calls you actually want to go. Technically, this means that we always have at least 2 community calls every single week for you to take advantage. And if you don't have time, check the recordings, check what's relevant for you again, and take advantage of them. All of the invites are available from akms/community/calls. Now, we also would love to get a lot of feedback from you. So there are multiple ways to get involved in the community. So of course, you can join the community calls and consume the information what we're sharing. You can also share a demo, a solution, or technical pattern. So we would love to have community-driven demos in some of these calls, because they really show the art of possible. So it's not just Microsoft telling that, well, you might be doing this and that, and this is a cool thing. No. We want to have customers and partners to showcase what they actually built with the tooling, which we want you to actually use. And those are really, really popular. And by the way, a great way, for example, to get an MVP status in Microsoft, because all of those calls and demos do get appreciated in those rankings. You can also contribute in GitHub. We have a lot of stuff available there. And the most important thing is to provide feedback. We built Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Cloud Services for you, and we need to know what is the blocking thing, or what would you need to get or start using them more efficiently. Now, we do give you also a Microsoft 365 developer tenant, so you can register to the Microsoft 365 developer program to get a free tenant, which will automatically renew in every single 90 days, as long as you use it for developer purposes. And we have a lot of learning material available for Microsoft 365 across the whole stack. And you can find them from AKMS M365/dev/learn. So those are individual learn modules and learning paths, which are for you to take advantage. We also have 2 different specific podcasts. The other one is also a video blog. So the Microsoft 365 Dev podcast, which is typically hosted by Jeremy Fake and either Paul Schaffelin or Aisha Bass. And this time, the latest one, which went live yesterday, was Jeremy Fake together with Waldek Mastercards and Sebastian Levert. And they talked about the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy and what's the benefit out of that proxy tool. It's just a really cool open source project, which will help you to build your solutions efficiently so that the solution can adjust if there are unexpected throttlings or network issues in the cloud side. And the second show is our Microsoft 365 PMP Weekly, where the hosts are me, so yours truly, and Waldek Mastercards. And this week, we had Stefan Bisser from Austria, from Solvion, who's a technical lead there, and we talked about the Microsoft 365 development patterns and practices and direction and where's the demand and all of that. So really nice discussion also on the partner opportunities. Now, I did mention the samples already, but we have a lot of samples available. That number is updated today. So we have 1,485 samples across Microsoft 365, Microsoft Graph, Microsoft Teams, SharePoint Framework, Power Platform, and so on, provided by Microsoft and the community. So don't start from scratch. Try to find a sample which is kind of hey, this is actually a cool thing, and then you can reuse those assets which are available for you to take advantage. So really, they are there for you to get a starting point, get an idea, get inspiration on what's the art of possible when you are building your solutions. Now, you might or might not be super familiar on taking advantage of the samples in a GitHub, but we actually got you covered. And let me throw it to David Warner in Las Vegas to explain what the Sharing is Caring initiative is all about.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm actually back in LA today, but loss is the same.
Oh, guys, they're almost the same thing. US,
yeah, exactly. It's
not California somewhere.
Small little area. Yeah, exactly.
How did that happen, by the way? Wow.
Well, friends, as Vesa mentioned, we have almost 1,500 samples, and you know what? You could be the 1,500th sample submission. We would love to see you do that, but you might be like, I don't know how to do that. Well, Sharing is Caring is here to provide you hands-on guidance. What does that mean? It means we're going to join live sessions with you, other members of the community, MVPs, Microsoft employees, and we're going to accomplish how to do some of this stuff together. Never done a pull request in GitHub? Don't even know what a pull request in GitHub is? We're going to show you, we're going to teach you, and we're going to work together to learn how to do all these things together. So these sessions are free. We've got more coming up for February. We've got more coming up in March. How to use the samples, how to contribute to the samples. It's all goodness. Even if you have questions, they're not recorded. Safe space opportunity. Come join us. Let's get more involved together in the community and do more amazing things. ak.ms/sharingiscaring. That's it. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Los Angeles. Now, let's move forward on the slides. See, I'm learning, even on this age, which is good. One thing what we would love you to provide us feedback is around the Microsoft Community Insights. And this is our Microsoft Cloud community, Microsoft Cloud Global Cloud Community Initiatives. It's a bit larger than these community calls, but it's a larger Microsoft-wide initiative who's looking into collecting feedback related on our community work and what works and what doesn't work and so on. So please, if you have at your time, take a few minutes and answer on the https://akms/community insights Jan 23. Really, really important for us to know what works and what does not work. Now, on the news side of the house, we do have 3 new blog posts in the Microsoft 365 developer blog. So first of all, from Rabia, learn how to develop apps in Microsoft Teams using Teams Toolkit with our Studio Code. This is a new introduction on the new learning path, which is available in the Microsoft Learn. Really cool stuff. And we will start a series on that learning path in this call within upcoming weeks as well, which is really, really great. We also had a blog post by me by doing a do more with less in Microsoft 365 using SharePoint Framework. And this really is showcasing the SharePoint Framework versatility, as you can use it to build Microsoft Viva applications, Microsoft Teams applications, Outlook applications, and Office applications. So even though the name says SharePoint Framework, it's not actually for SharePoint, which is an interesting terminology confusion. Now, and the third one was from Dan Wahlin and Aisha Bass on From Zero to Hero, build a meeting apps with Azure Communication Services in Microsoft Teams. And we'll talk about that one today, of course, as part of Dan's demo. On the other side, there was a lot of news on the Teams blog and also Viva blog related on Viva sales, and then updates on the SharePoint side. We're not going to cover too detailed them in here because we want to make sure that our presenters have enough time today. But let's do a quick recap still on what's happening in the Teams platform documentation. So Surbhi, I think you are the one who's covering this today.
Yes, thank you, Vesa. Hello, everyone. We have one quick update today. Targeted in-meeting notification, which is released in developer preview, allows apps to send notifications to specific participants or a meeting stage. The notifications are private and are sent only to a specific or targeted participants. This helps to enhance meeting experience and develop user engagement activities in Teams meeting. So this is what we had for today. If you have any feedback or suggestion, please post on aka.ms Teams platform feedback. The link is available in the footer. You could also follow us on Twitter and configure to the RSS feed to get regular platform updates. Thank you, and over to you, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you for that one, Surbhi. And then it's time for a quick crew photo for those who are willing to participate on that. So if you are willing to put the video camera on, and we'll catch you on the screen. We have 50 seats in the room. Let's wait for a while before we do a hand waving. 50 seats, 50 seats, 50 seats. Let's see if I'll make it as well. Did I get it? Did I get it? Yet, not yet, not yet. 50 seats. We still have few seats for free. Few more. There I am. Okay, in the front row almost. And let me put the recording, or are we already 50 maxing out? There's Hugo. There's a lot of familiar faces. Let's do some hand waving as well. And there we go, recording. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Let's do some hand waving. Thank you for joining once again, and awesome to join you on the call. Excellent. Brilliant. It's always fun to do. Excellent. Good to have the versatility in the room as well. Excellent. We'll do a GIF animation out of that and share it in LinkedIn and in Twitter. Now, let's go to the actual starts of the day, and we are well in the schedule. I'm learning. So, which is really good. So we'll start with Dan, and then we'll go to Garry, and then we go to Pranita Padalwar as the last demo. But Dan, it's your 15 minutes of fame. Well, no, everybody knows you already, so you know.
15 minutes. All right. Well, it's great to be here with everyone. And, I had a way I was going to start this, but you know what I'd like to do? Vesa set up such a great community here. How about we all give him a round of applause? And I know there's other folks involved, but it really is cool to have this type of learning opportunity every week for y'all. So hopefully you get a chance to join it. And there we go. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So let me go ahead and dive on in here. We're going to talk about, as you can see here, integrating services on the Microsoft Cloud, and specifically adding audio video capabilities into your apps. And I'll talk more about that and what I mean by that coming up. But in essence, we're going to be talking, and we're going to have several sessions coming up on building across the Microsoft Cloud. So we're going to be talking in these sessions about Azure and Microsoft Graph. So my name is Dan Wahlin. I'm a cloud developer advocate, and my colleague, Aicha Bosch, is also going to be doing some of the sessions coming up later. So definitely stay tuned. Come every week, because we're going to have some great stuff for you here. So let me dive on in, and let's talk about kind of the purpose and focus of today. We're going to be talking about real-time audio-video calling. Now, you might say, we already have that. I have Teams, for example, or I use another tool. Well, we're talking about in custom apps. So let's say, just as a simple example, that we have someone on the left here who would like to go to my website, maybe they're a customer, and call in to get help setting up my new, bookshelf or something like that. Now, to do that, we'd like to add more of a personal touch, though. So we'd like the audio video, but I also want the customer to be able to share their backside camera so that they could show where they're stuck. And now if I'm customer service, I could help them out. Now, I just had a real life situation with this on Friday. No joke. So we had one of our, I live in Arizona, out in the west of the US, and we get hot in the summer. So it's currently winter here, but it is the time of year to make sure the AC is working. And we had a problem, it turns out. So they came out and they needed to call back to headquarters, and they all have these tablets. But what they do is they'll take some pictures, and then they'll make a call back and talk to someone there about the different parts and what's available. Well, I realized this is a perfect use case because they already have these tablets. Why not just make the call from that, show everything live, and not have to juggle two devices? So you could think of a lot of field scenarios where this would come up as well. Now, what we're going to be talking about, though, is going to be built up over a series that we're going to be doing over the next 6 weeks, actually. Today is going to be about audio video calling and kind of setting the foundation for what's possible. I'm going to show you a demo. And then we're going to talk through the different technologies that are available that we're going to be using across Azure and Microsoft 365. Now, next week, I'll be back, for good or for bad, folks, to talk about Azure Communication Services with regard to not only setting up audio video, but what if we could make it where your custom app could actually call into Teams? We can do that through ACS Teams Interop. Now, there was a previous talk. If you didn't catch it, you can go to the recordings of these on YouTube. And Thomas, who's a PM from ACS, introduced ACS, but I'm going to go into a very focused area as we do this. Now, the next session we're going to do is going to be on integrating ACS into a front-end app. Now, we're going to be talking about React throughout these series of sessions, but it could be any front-end app. It could be just pure JavaScript if you want it. Then we're going to go into the backend side. We're going to talk about Azure Functions and how we could use Microsoft Graph to dynamically set up a Teams meeting, an event, if you will. We're also going to be talking about how we could use Microsoft Graph to return some security information, some tokens that ACS would need for that user to be able to call into Teams and even other aspects of video calling. Then finally, we're going to put it all together. I'll be back for this last one. Aicha will do the two previous ones. And we're going to talk about how we can deploy the app itself, different application opportunities for deployment to Azure. Specifically, we're going to focus on Azure Static Web Apps, if you haven't seen that before. So a lot of good stuff that we're going to be doing. But today is all about this, setting the foundation of why would I care? Why would I do this? So the technologies we're going to be covering throughout this series and the demo I'm going to show in just a second to you are going to use the following. So we're going to be using React on the front end. But again, everything I'm going to be doing is web components. So technically, you could use whatever you want. As long as it runs JavaScript, you could do it. We're also going to be using Azure Communication Services. And again, this is going to be more of an audio video focus, but you can use this for SMS. You can use it for email. You could use it for actually calling phone numbers. You literally can do telephony with this. You could do it for chat. So there's all kinds of great stuff you can do. Anything communication oriented, this pretty much has you covered. But again, we'll focus on audio video. We're going to talk about Azure Functions, and then how Microsoft Graph can be used with that to dynamically set up the Teams meeting, but also return some information that Azure Communication Services would need. Of course, because we're going to use Microsoft Graph here, we'll have Azure Active Directory as well. That'll be part of this. And we'll have Microsoft Teams. That'll be the big players here. And then the last session, as I mentioned, we'll go into a couple deployment options. Azure Static Web Apps is one of my favorite services, but if you use something like containers, Azure Container Apps might be an opportunity there. All right, so with that, let's move on to a demo. And I actually have a video that Aicha and I recorded, but I'm going to tempt fate because with audio video live demos, it's always fun on what happens, but we'll see. It'll keep everybody on the edge of your seat going, is Dan going to fail? Is Dan going to fail? No, we'll hope not. I sacrificed whatever I needed to the demo gods. So I'm going to hop on over here to another screen. Let me go ahead and stop this real quick. And what we want to do is I want to walk you through first off kind of the sample itself, and then we'll jump into the demo. So you'll notice here that I have an ACS to Teams meeting, and I'll give you a link to this repo at the end here. So bear with me and you'll have that momentarily. But it's pretty straightforward in this demo. Notice I have a client, which is React in this case, and we have a server, which happens to be Node.js TypeScript in this case. We're actually going to be doing some other options as well, such as .NET and a few others in the near future. Now, what I've done is you'll notice two command prompts here. This is my Azure Functions. So I'm running this locally right now. That's what's kind of nice about this demo is you can actually try it out right on your machine once you've set up the resources. And then over here, you'll notice that I have, in essence, my Webpack, my React that I've started up, my server. Now, let me run off to the demo. And this is all going to be based on a tutorial that you can get to today. So all these sessions you'll see here on the left are part of this tutorial, but what I'm going to do is actually show you it. So let's go to localhost 3000 in this case. Now, what this is going to do is load the React app, but you'll notice up top, it's showing a few things, and it just made a request to Azure Functions. That called Microsoft Graph, and that hopefully set up an event in Teams that we can get to in the calendar. Now, this is Azure Communication Services right here in action. So this is what's called an ACS UI component. And in one of the upcoming sessions, I'm going to walk you through how to actually use that component. But today is more about setting the stage for what's possible. Now, I don't want this camera because that one happens to be the one I'm using right now. So I'm going to pick one that's way over here. But just to kind of show you this is hopefully working here, let me turn on my camera. And in just a moment, there we go. That should be working. You can see my behind the scenes setup, my shotgun mic and all that fun stuff. But there we go. So it is working, you can see. So what would happen then is, you know, the boss at the headquarters, the customer service rep, whatever, they would get notified. They can now come into Teams, and I'm going to make sure I mute my mic because we don't want feedback loop here. And I'm not going to start my camera on this one, but I'm going to go ahead and join this meeting. And then over here, I'm going to say, yeah, let's go ahead and let's start the call. And what should happen is because this user is not in my tenant, they're a guest. So I'm going to go ahead and admit them. And you'll notice I've logged in as Aich over here. So let me go ahead and admit them. And it'll take a sec for the video to catch up. But there we go. Here's the customer. And of course, the customer service person is actually right here in Teams. You know, how cool is that? So I have a custom app. And then I'm able to call into that custom app right here through Teams. How neat is that? Lots and lots of scenarios where you could put this to use. So let me go ahead and leave because it worked and I don't want to tempt fate here. And then we'll talk about some other aspects of how this is all put together before we wrap up. All right. So what I want to go into now is kind of the breakdown of what is happening then. So let's talk about this. So you just saw the React app on the left, and then obviously Teams was on the right. And what was happening there is the following. First off, we're using Azure Communication Services and what's called a UI calling component. Basically, it's just a web component, right? Runs anywhere the web runs. And that's being embedded in the React app. Now, when that app loaded, it made an instant call off to Azure Functions. And Azure Functions made a Microsoft Graph call. So we're using some delegated permissions there to actually set up a Teams meeting there, or app permissions, I should say, to set up the Teams meeting. Now, obviously, that then adds the calendar invite into Microsoft Teams, but we could also use Microsoft Graph to send like a chat into a Teams channel so that people don't have to go look at the calendar. They could be notified, actually. That's all available with Microsoft Graph, of course. Now, in addition to that, what ends up happening then is we also need to get an ACS token and user identity, and that's going to come from Azure Functions as well. So we have two Azure Functions we're going to be walking you through. One sets up the meeting. The other handles the ACS functionality as far as the token and the user identity. And then finally, what we're going to do is kind of put it all together, because I think a lot of times you learn about technologies, but you never really see how do I use it for real. So I'm going to talk more about the Azure Static Web Apps portion of this, and that'll be the last session in this series. So with that, let me give you a couple links here real quick, and I want to talk through these. So this first one is going to be a landing page that has a bunch of Microsoft Cloud scenarios. And when I say Microsoft Cloud in this case, what I mean is, well, internally we call it a lot 2+ Cloud. And by 2+ Cloud, I mean I want to use Azure with Microsoft 365 or Power Platform with Azure, or I want to use GitHub in the mix, those type of things. And so this will have a lot of different scenarios. So if you want to learn, for instance, how to build Teams apps, we'll have links to how to do that in addition to some of the ones you've already seen this morning. And then the tutorial that will actually walk you through everything we're going to cover can be found here, the second link. I'm going to go back to that in just a moment to wrap up here. And then finally, if you want to get to the sample code because you're just so excited about this, you got to use it today. I did have that scenario, by the way. We put this tutorial together, and literally the next week, a company was like, that's exactly what we needed. And they're building out a solution right now. So that was pretty neat to see. But the repo is going to have this sample and some others. And you can certainly get to that code if you'd like. Now, to wrap up, what I want to show you really quickly here is, let me stop PowerPoint here, and let's go back to here real quick. So in this tutorial, you'll notice on the left here, in fact, let me make that just a tad bigger for you, and I can make this full screen now. This is going to have the breakdown of what we're going to do. So next week, we're going to talk about the React side with ACS. Then we're going to go into, well, actually, sorry, we're going to talk about the ACS getting it set up with Teams and how that works. We'll talk about the React side, and then we'll get into the Azure functions, deploying, and we have different options there. So all of what we're going to cover can be found in these step-by-step tutorials that you can get to. And let me go ahead and put that up one more time, and I'll turn it back over to Vesa. If I can find the slide. There we go. Go back to that. And that's all I have, folks. So stick around, come join us next week, and I'll show you how to get started with all this. So I'll turn it back over to you folks.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. Really, really cool stuff. And it is such an amazing technology. And like Dan was saying, and probably you can figure out, we do use Azure Communication Services behind the scenes running the Microsoft Teams. So it's basically the same tech which Microsoft uses on a day-to-day basis for Microsoft Teams. And it's available for you, which is really, really cool. Anyway, let's move then to Garry's screen related on some chat, the OpenAI and artificial intelligence stuff. Right, Garry?
Stuff. Yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. Not that Dan's stuff wasn't cool, of course. It was super cool. But yeah, everyone loves a bit of AI, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today, and Teams, of course. So hi, everyone. My name is Garry Trinder. I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. And in today, we're going to talk about how I integrated DALL-E 2, which is the OpenAI image generation model. So this was the thing that everyone was talking about before ChatGPT came along, the ability to just put text in and get some images back. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we actually had that in Teams, and how would that look as a bot? So using Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, I went about creating this. And the result is a sample, which you can see in front of you. So I'm going to run through this as a demo, first of all, and show you how it's working. And then we'll jump into the code, and I'll show you all the individual bits and pieces, a few tips and tricks as well, some things that I added in there as I was building, just to help my own development. Yeah, we'll go through that. So first, let's look at the demo. So I have this bot that I've created. I've got my test user, Nesta, and in the app catalog, I have created my app. I've published it out so that anyone in this tenant can use it. So I'm going to install it. So Nesta is going to install the app. So we'll just add that. And it's a personal app, so it's going to appear on the side there, really nice and accessible. One thing it's got a nice onboarding process. So as soon as Nesta has installed the bot, it's gone, great, I know that you've just installed this. I'm going to give you some help. So I'm going to show you some information as to what you can use this bot for, and also the commands that you can use as well to use it. And also configuration steps. So one of the things that I wanted to do in this bot was actually to have personal preferences. What happens if you had a bot that you wanted to change depending on what your preferences were, or to actually provide an API key? So with the OpenAI APIs, you have to get an API key for use. You get like free trial. You can click this button and get a free API key. So I'll just open that up. It's going to just go to OpenAI, just a nice URL launcher. You can log in and you get your own key. Come back and provide your own key. So we've got an adaptive card here with, where's my key? Okay, just going to have to quickly go get a key. In fact, rather than not do that, I'll just show the video as a fallback. I recorded a video. This is always good just in situations like this. So we'll see that the bot is added. And we've got that onboarding message, and we can do the configuration. Paste in your API key, change results, change the image sizes that you want, and then ask the bot for some text. And it goes away and it generates a number of images based on that description. And then you click on the actual image and it opens up a dialog and you've got the image. Nice and easy, but really configurable. Let's look at the actual code here. So here we have my project in Visual Studio Code. So this was created using Teams Toolkit. So I've got that already installed. And I went through the create a new app process, create a new app. And I chose Workflow Bot as my my starting point. And I chose that mainly because I have commands in my bot. And I also have responses as well. So I want to get information from the user. I want to display back what they've sent through to the bot, and also store some information in the background. And why use Teams Toolkit in the first place? Well, it does a ton of work just to get started. So one of the great things about Teams Toolkit is as soon as I hit F5, it went away and created my Azure AD app registrations, my bot framework registrations. It provided me with templates as well for deploying to Azure later on, which I actually did as well. So Teams Toolkit really gets you up and running very, very quickly with a bot. And we can see if I go to the initialize file here. Here is what Teams Toolkit gives me. It uses the Teams FX library, which is really there to simplify the authentication and setup of the bot, but also provide an easy way to create commands like the surprise command and the settings command in here, but also card actions like the settings save handler. So when I click that button, I had a handler there to go, okay, yeah, something's happened, and I need to save that information so that my commands that I used further down the line that actually generated the images and called the OpenAI service, that I could get the API key from a previous part of the conversation that the user had with the bot. So here is kind of like the Teams FX side of the bot, if you like. Now, one of the things that I want to start with is how did I implement the welcome message? Well, one of the things that the Teams FX library, it doesn't do everything. Sometimes we want to fall back to bot framework and use some of that functionality. And the way that we can do the welcome message is by creating a Teams activity handler. Now, this activity handler is specific to bots that are run in Teams. So essentially, it gives you methods that you can override to say, okay, the bot's just been installed. Run this bit of code, or later on, which I'll show you about the how do we handle the pop-up, the dialog window when we click on the adaptive card. So when we have that welcome message, this code is fired here, which essentially just sends the message of hi there, and it renders an adaptive card called welcome card. And if we see in this welcome card, it's pretty standard adaptive card. It's got the information in there for the commands, but right down at the bottom, it has an action, which has a verb when we actually execute that card. We click on the button. It sends a verb to the bot that's called welcome config. And what that does is then I've got a handler here, which essentially then runs because it matches that verb and renders the settings card as well. There's a couple of things here where it's trying to grab things from state. I'll cover that in a minute. But essentially, this is then how we can kind of cascade one action to another through using these trigger verbs. So the settings card here is rendered. We can show that again as well, where we've got please enter your API key, and we had the style there, the password style, so that the key was masked, and the different options for the number of images that we want, and also the size of them. And again, we've got some verbs here for settings save and settings cancel. So again, these are action handlers. So in here, we can obtain the information that was submitted through that adaptive card through actions data. So we can take the API key and the size as well, and we can set all these values into state. We can also return the kind of like the summary information. So if you remember when we hit the save button, the settings card got replaced, and the actual information that we submitted in was put in place of that card. Nice way of kind of reinforcing that confirmation that it's been submitted. So the activity handler, if we go into the index.ts, here we've got a web server where this is again generated by Teams Toolkit, where we've got a message handler that handles messages sent between our bot running in Teams and the bot framework. And what we can do here is we can run alongside the Teams FX bot that's created for us. We can run our activity handler as well. So every time something happens, we've also got our activity handler running. And these all work together. The second part is state that I want to talk about in here. So by default, when you're using Teams Toolkit with a bot, everything's stored in memory. So if you save a file, your memory will get reset, which is not great when you're dealing with state in a bot. So one of the things which I did do is install the Azure Blobs package and actually set this up so it was using a local instance of Azure storage, and we can configure a new storage instance here. We can set up state. This is pretty standard in bot framework, and we can create state accessors where we can save things like the API key, results, and sizes, settings, things like that, so that we can actually push things into state as we're going along. One thing which I know a lot of people have said is Teams Toolkit does a lot of things. We don't know what it's doing. I'd like to add my own services in here. One of the things that I did also do was to actually start a service. So because I'm using a local running instance of Azure Storage to hold my conversation state, I wanted to have the Azurite service running when I did an F5 and actually launched my my bot. So I installed that package, which basically creates a local service running on my machine. So it's like I'm working with a real Azure Storage that's provisioned in the cloud. I can actually extend the build chain here and actually reuse a lot of the work that Teams Toolkit has done for me. So that is a really helpful tip. If you want to extend that build chain, then you can do by coming into this tasks.json. Now, let's take a look at the actual commands. The one command that we actually ran was the surprise command. So when I put in surprise, we've got a handler here that's looking for that word. And what it's doing is it's actually going away and it's finding the API key that we've put in state. It's actually checking to see whether I have or not. If I'd skip that stage, it would actually go actually present your API key and go back and use the settings command to add that value in. And what it's doing is sending some messages back. It's getting a random idea from a random list that I've got here that's from the OpenAI website. And then it's calling this generate image function here. And in here is where the OpenAI stuff takes over. In the OpenAI service has SDKs, so you can install the OpenAI package. So this one's for Node.js, where you can create a client that you can then use to send a request off to the OpenAI service, passing your API key, the prompt, how many images you want, and so on. and get a response back of images that then you can render in your results. So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of checking to make sure I've got API keys and things, and I've actually got the right preferences as well, such as, like I say, number of images and the size. And we send the request across to OpenAI, we get a response, and we simply render that in an adaptive card. So let's look at that adaptive card. So in here, it's actually a loop. So it uses the data expression to loop through all of the results and create an image with an action button. Now, every time, so when the image is actually clicked, it executes this task fetch activity. And it passes the URL to the actual image and also the prompt, so the text that we actually passed into to generate the image. Now, if I go back to my activity handler, we have another function in here called handle Teams task module fetch. And this is triggered, and it returns a response to open a task module, that dialog, and it returns just a URL. So it's actually a URL to a HTML page that I have in my solution, and it passes the URL and the prompt values through as just query string parameters. And in here, I can show you the HTML page. It's really, really basic. It's literally just getting the URL, and it's updating the attributes on an image tag to display that image in the task module. And then when it's closed, it doesn't matter. We don't need to capture that actual event coming back. One thing to just kind of note as well, as I'm rapidly running out of time, is I use Teams Toolkit to get this project actually running in Azure as well. And I mentioned at the beginning that it provides the templates, and this was really, really useful because, you know, from my point of view, the defaults there were enough. The web server that it was using, all of the bot service, all of the identity I didn't need to touch, but I did add my storage. So I wanted that when this actually was running in Azure, that I had Azure storage there, just like I was using locally in my development. So I added a bicep file, and this just describes the storage account that would get provisioned. I updated this provision.bicep file, which is kind of like the main entry point that says, you know, when Teams Toolkit looks at this file, it's going to look at all the resources that it needs to actually provision for this project to work, and update the Azure parameters as well in here. So I could actually parameterize all the different resources that was being generated as well. And it was made really easy because you've got different options down here. You've got provision in the cloud. So that will go away. It will run the bicep files. It will basically provision all of the resources. And then we've got deploy to cloud, that after we've done the provisioning, this will actually package up and deploy the code and deploy that to the web server, and also the any environment variables that I'll have used. And then finally, we've got publish to Teams, which basically published the app into our organization catalog. And then I could basically use any user in my tenant to use that bot. And with that, I'm going to finish. So hopefully you've seen how you can build bots like this using Teams Toolkit. I'm going to put the links in the chat, and it'll be in the video description as well, so you can take a look at the repository and try it out for yourself. Vesa, back to you.
Excellent, really, really cool stuff. Thank you for the clarification, how it's being built, and all of the features which we have in the Teams Toolkit as well. Now let's jump then to Pranita, who's the last demo of today. So really, really cool stuff.
Okay, let me share my screen.
And we can see the screen. Awesome.
Awesome. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Pranita Padalwar, and I'm a product manager in Power Pages. I focus on data experiences in the product. So to begin with, I'll first give an overview of Power Pages to set context, and then dive into the demo to show how customers can contextually create tables, forms, and view in Data Workspace in their desired solution, as Data Workspace is now solution aware. If you have questions and reactions, keep them coming in the chat. Okay, so Power Pages was introduced as the newest edition of Power Platform in October 2023 during Ignite to build, host, and administer websites. Power Pages empowers Fusion teams, be it business users, IT admins, or developers, to create external-facing websites in a low-code, no-code manner. Power Pages is enterprise-grade platform for organizations to build and launch external self-service websites that allow them to connect with their customers, partners, communities to share and collect business data securely and at scale. We're already seeing great customer momentum with Power Pages. The momentum is across industries. State and local governments, retail and manufacturing, financial service organizations, educational institutes, and nonprofit organizations. The types of websites we see being created by these organizations span citizen services, application processes, such as visa applications, registration services like product warranty or course registration, and partner portals to share key business data securely with their partners. Now let's look at the website building experience in Power Pages. And the website building experience resides in Design Studio. Makers can build and style business-centric websites in a low-code, no-code manner within Design Studio. Design Studio has 4 immersive workspaces dedicated to specific user jobs. Starting from the top left, Pages Workspace. In Pages Workspace, makers can create site structure, build web pages using drag and drop experiences. Makers can configure and add components starting from standard components such as image, videos to data-powered components. Second is Styling Workspace. In the Styling Workspace, makers can apply global site styling or themes to match their company branding. Third, Data Workspace. In Data Workspace, makers can manage their business data. They can create dataverse tables, forms, and views to be used in the site. Fourth is Setup Workspace. In the Setup Workspace, makers can configure their site settings, such as authentication providers, managing permissions, and much more. Now let's dive deeper into Data Workspace. In Data Workspace, makers can create and manage their business data. They can create and modify dataverse tables to store the site data, create forms to collect data from site visitors, or create and modify views to be displayed on the site. Data Workspace is one-stop shop to easily visualize and manage business data for the site. And all of this is stored in Dataverse on the platform. With this context, now let's dive into the Data Workspace solutions topic. Data Workspace is now solution aware. So what does this mean? This means that makers can select any unmanaged solution of their choice within Data Workspace. After they select the solution, any creates or edits made in Data Workspace will be added to the selected solution. All newly created tables and columns will get the schema prefix of the selected solution's publisher. This becomes super important as different teams within the organization could be building different sites, and schema name becomes a key way to identify what assets belong where. Now, why is this an important problem? This is important because makers can now organize their data assets in the desired solution contextually while working in Data Workspace without navigating away. This enables makers to take their site from dev to prod easily following Power Platform ALM best practices. For example, if makers want to take their site from one environment to another, such as from dev to prod, they can do this easily. With that, let me dive into the product demo. Okay, so right now I am in Power Pages homepage. In here, as you can see, I've already created scholarship application site. The scenario is we want to create a site to allow students to apply for scholarships. So I'm going to go edit the site. This launches the Design Studio. Currently, I'm in Pages workspace, and as you can see here, I've already designed my home page. In the left pane, now I want to create tables, forms, and views that will be used in the site. The table will be used to store the application data that students submit. So in the left pane, I'm navigating to Data Workspace. Now in here, before creating any tables, forms, or views, I want to make sure that the right solution is set so that anything I create here gets added to that solution. So I come to the settings here, and in here, I select Scholarship Application Site Solution. In this dropdown, I can see the list of all unmanaged solutions. And in this case, I'm choosing Scholarship Application Site Solution. So as you can see here, the solution selection has been updated. Now, let me go ahead and create the table. I'm going to call it Application Details. And I'll go to Advanced Options to show the schema prefix name. So for this solutions publisher prefix is called app. And as you can see here, it has got appended as a prefix to the schema name. Same applies to the column. As you can see here, the prefix of the schema name is the solution publisher's name that I had chosen. So now I'm going to save it. As the table gets saved, it will be added to the solution that I had selected. Okay, so now I'm in the applications detail table that I just created. I'm going to go ahead and create one column as well. I'm going to call it date of birth. It is date. Let's make it a date only column. And then as you can see here, the prefix of the schema name has been appended based on the solutions publisher names. So I'm going to save it. Okay, so now to verify, let's just go to the Solution Explorer and check if the table and the column that we created got added to that respective solution. So I'm going to go to Scholarship Application Site Solution. And in here, as you can see, I have my table as well as I have the respective columns in that table. So this was the column that I created, and rest of the columns come out of box as any table is created in Dataverse. So now going back to Data Workspace in Power Pages. So like I created a table, when I create views and forms, similarly, those views and forms would also get added to the respective solution that I've selected here. We hope that this improves makers' productivity multifold as they can now contextually select the right desired solution within Data Workspace as they create their tables, forms, and views. With that, I'll hand it over. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Pranita, on that one. Really, really cool to see the investments and continuously new stuff in here in Power Pages as well. So really, really cool job. And a great demo. Thank you for that. Live demos are always great. Thank you for that. So we are right on schedule. This is awesome. So we have still 3 minutes, and we'll give you 1 minute back probably to do a quick break. So just to recap, and for coming up on next week. So next week, we do have Dan Wahlin to talk about creating Azure Communication Services resource, Microsoft Graph and Microsoft Teams. So talk about continuing that series which he started today. And then we have Sebastian Levert and Gavin Barron joining us related on Microsoft Graph Toolkit. So a lot of investments on that side as well. And Microsoft Graph Toolkit makes it super easy to create those connected solutions in the Microsoft 365. So which are connecting to Microsoft 365 data. Now, that's it for today. The video and the recording will be in the Microsoft 365 community YouTube channel within 24 hours. So you cannot access the video directly from the chat, even though it might imply like that in the text. That only works for the Microsoft employees. So we'll get it in YouTube within 24 hours. And then after that, as a split it individual videos followed up later. Follow us on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel to know when the new stuff is available. And the next Microsoft 365 platform call is a week from now, 8 a.m. Pacific time, every single Tuesday. Hopefully we will see you there. It is indeed Valentine's Day. Thank you, Fabian, for reminding on that one. So see you, friends, on next week in here. Thanks, everybody.